Aftermath of the Civil War. April 2nd, 1865, Grant captures Petersburg. General Robert E. Lee retreats and is cornered at Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia. Lee's army is starving and greatly outnumbered, of course, by Grant. They're on the run. They don't have as many people. They're on their last leg. A week later, April 9th, 1865, Lee asks for term of surrender. Grant is generous. Now, here's why Grant is so generous. First, men and officers not to take up arms against government of the United States, right? So they're not supposed to do that. He did not have to surrender sidearms, horses, or baggage. So they didn't have to give away their possessions when they did that. And sidearms are something, of course, that you could use to revolt. You typically don't do that. Now, they didn't want unnecessary humiliation. Now, the reason for all of this is simply because they considered them a part of the United States. They were not a foreign country. It would be like your sibling revolting against you, and you go through and say, I'm going to be lenient on you because we are of the same blood. Many of these people were of the same blood, of the same people. Some of them could have been cousins fighting in the same battle. Actually, some of them were brothers or cousins or some sort of extended family that was fighting against each other. So they did not want to humiliate them. They also just kind of wanted this thing to get over with. This is the courthouse, and then this is the scene inside the courthouse. On the left, you have Lee, and on the right, you have Grant for the surrender. April 9th did not end the war, though. You can see on here, April 26th, Johnston surrenders to Sherman in North Carolina. May 2nd, Taylor surrenders in Alabama. June 2nd, General E. Kirby Smith surrenders in Mississippi. June 23rd, General Waite surrenders Cherokee forces to Union Army in Oklahoma. So that was not the end, but it kind of marks the end on the fact that Lee was the man. Lee was their hope. And without Lee and those forces, they were basically on their way out. April 11th, 1865 was Lincoln's last public address. The speech was given from a window of the Executive Mansion. Of course, yeah. So it was given from there. A crowd gathered and they called for Lincoln to speech. And it was the first time he gave support of black suffrage, which is huge. Because again, he did the Emancipation Proclamation, but we have the public support coming after that. Now, if we reject and spurn them, we do our utmost to disorganize and disperse them. We, in effect, say to the white men, you are worthless, or worse, we will neither help you nor be helped by you. To the blacks we say, this cup of liberty which these your old masters hold to your lips, we will dash from you and leave you to the chances of gathering the spilled and scattered contents in some vague and undefined when, where, and how. Now, the idea of this is Lincoln goes through to give black suffrage, goes through and wants to help, goes through and wants to be a part with them, but also he wants to unify. The idea is that, hey, we just went through this war, and as you know, this is a military history class, we need to understand how to rebuild and how to put things back together. Otherwise, we have things, and yes, I'm giving you a little bit of a spoiler alert, we have things like World War II, because a country was so disorganized and so beat up and broken. So instead, you got to do that. Now, at the same time, John Wilkes Booth happened to be there, and it is thought that he had said, that is the last speech he, talking about Lincoln, will make. This, of course, is the White House. And then April 14th, 1865, President Lincoln and his wife attended the Ford's Theater at about 10 p.m. while they're sitting and watching. John Wilkes Booth, who happened to be an actor, enters the president's box and fired and shot him in the back of the head. Now, at this time, you could walk up to Lincoln and he would talk to you. You could walk up to Lincoln at his house or at the White House, and you could talk, and you could simply, they didn't have all sorts of gates and everything that we have today. So he does that, and then he leaps to the stage. And when he leaps to the stage, he says, Sic semper tyrannis, which, if you don't know your language, means ever thus to tyrants. So he's saying, hey, we are going to break free. This is not going to happen. April 15th, 1865, Lincoln, which is the next morning, dies at 7 a.m. Thus, he belongs to the ages, meaning that, yes, he is considered one of the greatest presidents of all time. It's true. Part of that is because he died. The other part is because he did some great things, but we don't get to see what he would have done in his second 4 years of presidency. So you can see there the assassination. He's in there, jumps off the balcony, hurts his leg, and when he goes to get away, they were trying to take out the president, the vice president, and they also wanted to take out the Secretary of State. If you took out all three, it would cost disarray. The others did not die. There was one that was stabbed, and the other assassin did not go through with it. So they end up by finding Booth and get into this huge thing. Long story short, all those guys are caught, captured, and serve their punishment. The effects of the Civil War in the South, 2/3 of shipping destroyed, 9,000 miles of railroad tracks. Now, this is Sherman and just kind of destroying the South. 1/3 of livestock. Part of that is eating through it. The other part of it is destroying things because you used, they weren't going to leave things for the Confederates to go through, and they wanted to make them suffer. So they did that. Value of farms down 70%. Again, 1/3 of your livestock is gone. You also have no more slavery. So yes, that's also going to be a problem. 1/3 of men were killed or wounded from the South. Total war left burned out farmland, factories, and demolished infrastructure. Again, the idea here was you get rid of that. You get rid of it because then they can't come back or they can't make things from there. Now, emotionally, you have these white people. Obviously, they were kind of like the kings of the land. They go from top and they're still proud, but now they're angry because now they're considered, as far as the law, equal with a black man or black people. And they had just had them as slaves. So that's where you get the KKK, because it's a way for them to go through and have their meetings together and feel good. And then the KKK takes a huge turn for the worst. It did not start out as terrible as it ended. I will tell you that. Now, I'm not saying it was a great thing to start out with, but it certainly turns out to be way worse as time goes on. Overall, the Union preserved, slavery is abolished, and roughly 620,000 died. The nation, of course, goes on to become an industrial power. Now, these deaths, I want you guys to look at this graph. The Revolutionary War, War of 1812, Mexican-American War. Now look at the Civil War, almost 620,000. This is an estimate, but it's more than nearly all of the other wars the United States has been in combined. Now, the other wars would be a little bit higher than that. But to give you some perspective of how big of a loss this was, 620,000 people died. Now let's look at this. The United States had about 31 million people. Do the simple math there, 620 divided by 31 million. That's roughly 2% of the population, or 1 in 50. Let's put that to be a little bit, make an idea of what's going on. Our school has, I don't know, if you count just the high school, we have about 1,800. Right? And so if we're going to do the simple math there, you'd have one person out of every two classes you're in dies, which is going to be, super crazy. But out of 1,800, you have 36 people who died. So we'd have 36 people instantly gone in Lake Stevens from the classes, and then that would be every single school around. So that's huge. It would kill people roughly around the same rate as COVID-19 or the coronavirus. Anyways, you guys have a thing on Google Classroom that you guys can go ahead and finish up with.